From sunny Austin, Texas, it's the Counselor Dynamite View, coming at you.
Hello and welcome to the Counselor Dynamite View, based out of Austin, Texas. My name is Star Burgess, and joining me are my co-hosts Crystal Kell and Jenna Fleming. We are so happy that you're joining us for this month's show. We're going to begin with talking about the topic of bullying, which we know is just a national epidemic.
Oh my gosh.
It is just spreading all over the place. And so when we think about bullying, we think about really three characteristics. We think about that bullying includes aggressive behavior, an imbalance of power, and the behavior is repeated over and over again or has the ability to occur over and over again. Is there anything else you guys need to add to that?
That's good. That's pretty much the working definition that we use in the schools. And then, of course, we know there are so many various forms of that, in person, over the internet, and all kinds of ways that can happen.
So when we're starting to talk about the statistics of bullying, what do we have?
Well, I gathered some statistics. One of the things that I thought was really interesting when I was looking at statistics, it depends on what site you go to. And I thought that was very interesting from various factors, from what year they're using information from to just kind of what studies that they pulled and found information from. The one that I liked the best was from the National Education Association, and it's a little bit older. It's from 2010. But the information I thought was really good. I liked the way they laid it out. It was very concise. 1 in 7 students in grades K through 12 is either bullied or a victim of bullying. 56% of students have personally witnessed some type of bullying at school, which says go into your kids that are bystanders. You're seeing it happen, making sure that they know what to do. And I thought this one was a really telling one. 1 out of 10 students drop out because of bullying. So they don't even finish their education. It's gotten to a point where they don't even pursue getting a high school diploma because of it.
Tremendous.
Yeah,
Wow.
I thought it was really high as well.
So when we talk about the different forms of bullying, and I think you were talking about this earlier, Jenna, we really have about 4 different types of bullying. We have the physical bullying, where there's the hitting, the kicking, the slapping, the spitting. We have the verbal bullying, where where kids are saying mean things to each other. Then we have the relational bullying, where people are interrupting people's relationships or reputations. They're excluding people from the group. A lot of times they're trying to get people not to be friends with others. And then we have this cyberbullying, which has just gotten completely, I think, out of hand. But the cyberbullying is where they use the different forms of technology, like the cell phones, the computers, the tablets. And then we have the social media sites where kids are now bullying.
Which is evolving. I'm sure by the time this airs, it will have evolved even more rapidly than what we could possibly keep up with.
So when we start thinking about those 4 types of bullying, what do y'all see more in the schools?
Well, I'm an elementary school counselor, and we all either are or have a background in that. And that's exactly what I teach the students, are those 4 types of bullying. And what I do is I put it in a very kid-friendly way of explaining it to them. Sometimes the physical, social, emotional doesn't quite stick with 5-year-olds. But we talk about it as bullying is trying to hurt someone's body, someone's feelings, someone's friends, or using technology tools to do that. And so I think kids can kind of get their brains wrapped around, okay, it's about hurting me in my friendships, or hurting my feelings, or hurting my body. And I think just giving them those words is really helpful, and it sticks. But what I have personally noticed is that it goes reported in the younger grades. It goes underreported in the upper grades. Absolutely. The older the kids get, the less it is reported to adults. And that's why I'm sure it's really hard to get good solid statistics on these things, because it is so underreported. I think also the definition, while we have a clear working definition of this, we all know that the word bullying also has a lot of emotional charge, and we all have different feelings, different experiences about that. And that repeatedness, that's a hard one sometimes to catch. I don't know.
When I was
What
working,
y'all's experiences.
when I worked in elementary as a school counselor, like you were saying, that the older kids don't report it because they look at that as snitching.
Yeah.
And that was really shocking to me, that, and then you have a whole group of kids, and the child that's being bullied and the people who are bullying, or the bystanders,
Mm-hmm.
they have their different feelings about what bullying is too.
Mm-hmm.
So people who are being bullied, they're afraid to say anything because they feel like they're going to get bullied more
Mm-hmm.
if the people who naturally are bullying are not going to say anything because they're doing the bullying. But then the bystanders, and that's another interesting thing, is that we have the kids who just kind of stand back, and then they use the technology a lot of times to record it.
Yeah.
Like the cell phones, instead of doing something, they're actually recording it. Now, there was a story out in the media, I think this past week, where there was a group of kids, 2 girls got in an altercation, and a lot of kids were taping,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the girls intervened and stepped in and said, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that these ladies, I think there was some bullying going on, ongoing bullying, but she just stepped in. So I think there's a bit of a change in kids now stepping up and saying no.
Yeah. Well, I think that as a school system, I've worked in more than one district, and I know that it's across the board in the districts that I worked in, and have friends that work in other districts where there are as well, is just making awareness of what do you do when you see bullying. And that's something that we're trying to go in. We're trying to make sure kids know if you see it or if it happens to you, these are steps you can take and this is what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important because I think sometimes kids don't know. They feel like I'm being a snitch or something.
Yeah.
I would say my experience with older kids, like when they get into that 4th, 5th grade, I do have reporting of things, but usually it's just girls. Very rarely do I have a boy. And if I do have a boy come to me about something like that, it's because mom has made them. And I've gotten a phone call from mom saying he will be to see you. And if he's not, you call me back. But the girls seem to be a little bit more willing to talk about things and let me know what's going on, especially with the isolation, or the gossiping. It's really big. We have a hard time with that sometimes.
I'm glad that you brought that up because not only I think that social part of reporting is different between boys and girls, but also the type of bullying is very different. Boys, my experience is that it's much more physical, and I think research too points to that. It's more aggressive, it's physical, it's usually quick, and often isn't as repeated, although it can be. There can be isolation, there can be relational aggression, but with girls it seems to be more prevalent, what's called relational aggression, and basically that just means like the social isolation, the icing out, the rumors, all of those things. Excluding, and that, those wounds can cut deep. But girls seem to be a little bit more savvy, where it's also maybe reported, but it also, I think, a lot more goes under the radar, as far as all of that type of bullying behavior.
So we start talking about the signs of bullying. What do y'all notice about the children, the signs of the kids who are being bullied in the school? I know I've noticed that they withdraw, they're not as active on the playground. And when we're talking about elementary school, we know that the kids still get to go outside. When they get older, they don't have recess anymore. It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
But I've noticed the withdrawing. The parents are calling and saying the child is reporting that they don't have friends. Maybe there is a change in the amount of schoolwork or the quality of schoolwork that they do. What do y'all notice?
Definitely those things. You see them withdrawing, you see changes in schoolwork. Even on the other end, though, sometimes you'll see more aggression. Frustration will come out. My child's exploding over small things that I've asked them to do. I don't understand what's going on. Or the teacher's like, I just asked you to put your paper away, and just the responses are a little bit off.
Yeah, I think the key is really to stay in good communication with your child at all stages of their life. And when you're in really good communication, you're going to be more in tune with changes, whether it's a change in their clothing attire, a change in their friendships, a change in, they're wanting to wear long sleeves when it's warm outside, or are you alluding more to the self-harm that may happen? It could be that someone's harming them. It could be that they're wanting to create this shield of protection from others. Sometimes,
Be invisible.
you know, when we feel like we don't want others to harm us, we want to guard ourselves. And so often we'll see kids pull hoodies over their head. And so just being really in tune to any sorts of changes in your child's typical behavior, and every child's different. So you really have to stay in tune with that and keep communication open with them. But I think also what's really key is ongoing education. And this happens as a school counselor, as it's teachers' responsibilities, it's schools' responsibilities, and it's also the parents' responsibility to continually educate children in ways that they can appropriately advocate for themselves, resources and people that they can go to when they're having a difficult time, and also giving kids a safe way to report where they're not feeling like they're the snitch or they are backstabbing their best friend. And one of the best ways to give your child a safe way to report is to not judge what they're saying initially. And I think so often as a parent, Lord knows, I can really empathize with this, is so frequently my kids will bring something to me and I'll want to immediately correct or give my advice or my opinion, and that really creates a wall of communication between you and your child. And so just practicing what's called empathic listening, which is just listening without judgment, receiving it, and really being present for your child, I think that opens the doorway to that safe place of reporting.
And I get that about the reporting. I think that's really good. So the signs that you're seeing are when the change of clothes, or if the child's not communicating as much. Now here's something. What then are the signs of the person who's being the bully? Do you ever really see any signs of the person who's the bully?
It depends, I think. It depends on the student. With some students, you see an increase in aggression, an increase in attitude. But with some kids, I'll be honest with you, you don't. You don't necessarily see
we don't see as the adults, but the children may see.
Oh, yeah.
Or they do see.
Yeah, and I think
they
paying attention to the kids and the situation around can really clue us into some things. I also think that the hurt is the same. It's just either directed your way that I'm giving to you or I'm receiving for you, but it's still that same pain. So often kids that are bullying others are also victims of other types of bullying,
So they've been bullied.
or perhaps stress at home even. That hurt within them is just coming out towards somebody else in the form of anger or bullying. And so I think sometimes our victims are also our perpetrators.
And I think when I see the clients that come to me in practice, when we're talking about getting under the anger and what's there, a lot of times it's the sadness. It's and that's what's normally, the anger is what we see as the reaction, but underneath that anger is the sadness and the powerlessness the children face.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that you said the powerlessness. One of the best things that I think that you can do is, and Jenna had mentioned it, is giving your kid tools. Yes. You have to empower, you have to build them up, you have to give them resources. One of the trends that I notice is that a lot of times our resource for kids is tell an adult, tell an adult, tell an adult. And that's important. Reporting is very important. That should always be part of your toolkit. But there are other tools that are in there that can help a child feel like I have some control here, especially when it comes to relational things. Yeah. You talk to a child, they shove me down all the time. Well, tell me about it. Tell me what happens. And as you listen, well, I laugh when they do it. Okay, well, how do you feel about it? Is it funny? And you really start helping them to be assertive. I don't like that. Stop. And you're giving them those tools to be able to communicate what their needs are. And to stand up for themselves. I think that's so important that they have that more than one trick. Telling an adult's vital. It's important. That's part of your toolkit, but you've got to have some other tools in your belt.
And I love that when you say that, because I think when you help the children understand their own tools, it helps build up their self-confidence, their self-esteem. They learn their value as a person, and that they can set boundaries with people. And that's something that a lot of times is lacking, not only for our children to have boundaries, but for what they allow other people to do to them.
Absolutely.
And they buy into that this is the way that it is, and that I have to kind of behave in this way or allow people to treat me or mistreat me. And so I think giving those kids the tools of, no, you have value. You're a beautiful child, you're a blessing. That really is helping them to be more confident and,
You
maybe
are
I can.
deserving of going to school, feeling safe, and
All that.
having fun.
And I think also, again, going back to communication, when we talk to kids about words to use, because a lot of times they don't even know what to say.
Yes.
They don't even know how to begin to have the conversation with another person they want to set boundaries with.
Yeah.
And so I think that's important to give them the tools that you have the
absolutely
words.
agree.
And I think that there was a program that we did at the school that we used to work it together, which was the
Stop, walk, and talk.
Stop, walk, and talk. And I
Yeah,
love
we use
that.
it as well, right?
Yes,
And
I
we
had
use
to
that. And it's been very helpful for giving kids the tools and options for what do I do if I'm in a bullying situation. So the stop, walk, and talk is to tell them to stop. If you can walk away from the situation, do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, if you cannot walk away, you go and you talk to a teacher or a person that's an adult. So that stop, walk, and talk was just so helpful.
And I love it because it's really helpful no matter what the age is. As an adult, the way I kind of conceptualize that concept is request, remove, report. First ask. Sometimes people don't realize that you're not liking what they're doing, or that you need more personal space. Remove yourself from a situation. And that, sometimes I have to remove myself from a situation that I don't feel comfortable in. And so giving the kids the freedom, and then request is, asking, or reporting is asking for help when it's needed, when it's beyond what a kid can really handle.
And what I want to add to
I
that
like
is,
that. I like that. Ask for help instead of report.
Yeah.
In the sense of, or tell, because I think that will cut out on that misnomer of I'm tattletelling. You're
That's
asking
right.
for help, honey bunny.
We
a
all
big
need
difference.
help solving problems that are beyond what we
Yeah.
can handle at that
The
time.
big problems.
so what I was going to say is that when we're giving kids the rules of, or not rules, but kind of helping them with the tools of communication, when we do the stopping and when we have the kids talk to the other person, I tell them to tell the person what happened, tell them what you didn't like that they did, and then tell them what you want them to do.
Yeah. It's just like a great iMessage.
Yes. And so we use those I statements, like, when you did this, this is how it made me feel. This is what happened. This is how it made me feel. And this is what I want you to do. A lot of times is I want you to stop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you practice that with the kids in the classroom setting, when you practice that and then the kids, and you give them different scenarios that they can practice with, and that helps empower them as well.
It does. It really gives them the words, and it teaches them, you brought up the word, that they are, not assertive, but they are being assertive, not aggressive.
Right.
And we want our kids to be assertive with what they want. But sometimes kids are not going to stop.
Yeah.
Have you,
and that's when you go and get help.
I've asked them to stop. Well, then that's also, you have the choice. You can remove yourself from the situation. And sometimes we can't remove ourselves from a bothersome situation. There are going to be kids that it's not necessarily bullying, but it's bothersome. And sometimes that's where that fuzzy line is that I will get reports of, kids will call it bullying, and it's really maybe bothersome, or it's more like conflict. And it's owning control. What do you own? What do you have control of? Could you control maybe playing in a different area or standing in a different place in line? Or sometimes I have to ignore that buzzing sound that's really bothering me. And sometimes I can't get my work done at all, and so I need to request and get some help. So I think it's really determining how impactful is it, and what do I have control over as far as teaching kids to try and problem solve a little bit on their own. And then also, is it time where I need to go ahead and report and get some help on this?
And I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, and this is also what I see in practice. How do we teach our kids to cope with bullying? And I think what you were saying about, you have the choice to remove yourself, asking for help, but then what are other coping tools that they can do so that when a child, for example, is teased or mean things are said to them, how do they, if their self-esteem is not built up, how do they cope with the mean words or the rumors or the gossiping? And I think that's also important to teach our kids too.
Really is. That's hard. I think you touched on this too, and you did, Star, about, bullying is really an expression of anger. Anger, I describe it to kids, it's an umbrella that covers up pain. There's something that it's covering up. Anger is not the primary emotion. It's covering something up. And so that's why victims often will become perpetrators, because they have the pain now. And so that often gets covered up with anger. So the way to heal the pain is to talk about it. You can't heal what you don't deal with. And so to talk about it with your parents, and again, that's that communication. Your school counselor is there for a reason. Your teachers can be incredibly healing to their kids just by honoring their experience and listening empathically, being there with them. I think that's tremendous. Knowing that it's not their fault, that they don't own that. That's an experience that happened to them, and helping kids to feel safe. That happened, but here's what we're going to do to make it not happen again, or put some protections in place so that we hope it won't happen again.
And for me, when I'm working with children in practice, I also empower them with, what do you think you can do? Once we start, when we start planting those seeds of, it's not your fault, and those kind of things, then I empower them when they ask me about a situation. I'll ask them, well, what do you think you ought to do? And that really empowers them to start putting on that problem-solving hat and start giving themselves some options, because we don't want them to become dependent on just necessarily needing someone else to kind of guide them through, particularly as they get older. We want them to be able to build on their own resources and their own strength to be able to look at a situation and assess and then figure out what to do.
And is this healthy for me?
Yes.
And hopefully the goal is, as they get older, they're using those skills prior to the point of where I'm in a bullying situation. I'm looking at this. Is this person really a good friend? Does this person really care about me? Those are awesome skills that will be lifelong ones.
So we have some takeaways to leave with our viewers. What are the takeaways that you'd like to share?
I would say really educating yourself, educating children at a young age. What are the types of bullying, and starting to give kids the language. Because when we don't have the language, we start acting out, we just don't know what to do. And so giving kids education about what is bullying, what are some words I can use when I see this type of bullying, and then what are the roles of bullying, the victim, the bully, and the bystander. What are those roles? So we have a clear designation, because we, children and ourselves, we need to own it. When not only it's the bullying that kids are doing, but when they're the bystanders too. That is something to own as well.
For me, I would say communication. Just talking with your child, taking the time to just pay attention, what's going on in their life, being clued in, not grilling them, which we talked about in our parenting one. But just kind of giving your child some space, and at the same time listening and trying to keep that open communication going. And when your child does express, I love how you pointed out, don't overreact. Take the information that they've given you, try to problem solve with them. What could you do? And definitely just be there, keep that communication open.
My takeaways are: build a relationship. Make sure that you have a relationship with your team, your teachers, your counselor, your administrators. Know as a parent, what are the school's policies on bullying, and what's your district's policies on bullying as well. And so that you know how to navigate, what do you do in this, if your child is being bullied, if they're a bystander, or if they are the ones that are doing the bullying. Know the policies. I think also right on with you, Crystal, when you say communicate, have dinner with your children. Dinner is so important that it's a time where kids can talk about their day. Know who their friends are. Know what kind of, if they're on social networking sites, monitor that. I had a police officer, he came and did a presentation for our professional organization, and he talked about even being friends with your kids on the social networking sites.
Oh, sure.
Because we want to keep an idea of, who our kids are talking about, what are they talking about. So those are the takeaways that I would like to leave today.
Yeah.
It's great advice.
Those are great. And there are so many books and resources out there. There is an excellent book by Barbara Coloroso. I think it's fantastic for counselors, teachers, and parents. And it really outlines, kind of breaks down a little scientifically, the process of bullying, the dynamics of bullying. It's called The Bully, the Bullied, and the Bystander. And we'll have that resource online. But I thought that would just be a great resource for parents that really want to get their heads and teachers wrapped around exactly what the dynamics of bullying looks like.
My book is called Big Bad Bunny, and I love this book. I use it with my kinder and my first grade friends, sometimes even second grade, just depending on my kiddos that year. But it's a great book because it also is about not only bullying behavior, but it's about redemption. And it's about, even though I'm behaving like a bully, I can change that. I can fix that, because bullies have power too that they can use for good. And it's just a great little story. The kids love it because it's very repetitious. And so they get a big kick out of it, and they really enjoy reading it.
In addition to your K through second grade, I've got a book that's called Counselor Dynamite Befuddles the Bully Crew. It is written by Star Burgess, and it's a really good book that talks about bullying for your 3rd through 6th grade kiddos. So we have the counselor who has various scenarios where there's bullying, and the counselor really helps children in the school begin to understand bullying and what to do.
And I love it. It just, you really give them the tools and empowering message. I love it.
Well, thank you.
Well, I'm sure you are anxious to find lots of resources. We have them listed on our website, www.counselordynamite.com. So please visit us there with our book picks. If you are looking for additional resources, we have resources for the Austin area. If you're not in the Austin area, don't worry, because you can always go to your local schools, Chamber of Commerce, for other resources close to you.
If you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear from you. You can go to our webpage, counselordynamite.com, and post those on there. Please be patient with us. We'll get to you as soon as we can, because we would like to hear from you.
And again, we're so happy that you joined us this month. We hope that you will return, where we will talk next month about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is also known as ADHD. Remember, you can subscribe for all the shows for free on www.counselordynamite.com. You can also follow and like us on Facebook and Twitter. Until our paths cross again, we wish you good health, happiness, peace, and joy.
The content of the Counselor Dynamite View, owned and operated by Life Menders Counseling, PLLC, is intended for general information purposes only. The information, views, and opinions expressed in this online talk show are not specific medical, financial, legal, or counseling advice. The content of this video is not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent a situation or condition. Individuals with mental health concerns should consult their doctor and/or mental health care provider for professional medical advice, medications, or treatments. If you have a mental health problem, we encourage you to speak to your doctor or mental health professional immediately about your condition. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to the Counselor Dynamite View, the show hosts, or Life Menders Counseling, PLLC, whose words and/or opinions appear from or on this show.